Hi everyone and welcome to part 2 of my flash photography tutorial. In this tutorial we are going to photograph a Phantom 4 professional drone. It is quite dark now and I am in my office and I've been illuminated by a YN600 LED video light with an umbrella on. And what we're going to do in today's video, we're going to do numerous things, so it may go on for a little bit. I was going to do it in loads of parts, but I'm struggling to find time to keep making these videos, so I have to do as much as I can when I can. So in the video, we're going to use on-camera flash today instead of off-camera flash. We did have a look at the basics before, turning the flash up, turning the flash down, and just seeing how easy it is to use flash. But today we're going to mix a bit of ambient with flash, and I'm going to use on camera. We will do maybe the next video, a very similar thing, we'll use off camera, but for today we're going to use on camera and we're going to use ETTL or ITTL, whatever it's called on Nikon. Obviously I am shooting with a Nikon D750. Equipment used, D750, 20-40-70 f2.8 lens with a YN 685 flash for Nikon. So we're going to put it on camera. I'm going to take a test shot now, and what I'm going to do first, if you remember in the previous video we discussed talking about the ambient first. Now we know there isn't a great deal of ambient in here. The ambient I'm creating myself on the video light, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my camera settings with no flash on first to take in some of this light. But I don't want to take it all in, I want it to be a couple of stops underneath the ambient, and then we're going to use the flash to mix both ambient and flash together, which is where using flash can get pretty confusing. So I'm going to try clear it up as much as I can today. We may use a bit of a diffuser as well. We'll talk a little bit about bouncing the light and going direct. Okay, so without further ado, I'll just get the camera out. Just before we continue, I'll just talk about this. We are going to use this soon, which is a little diffuser, which goes over the flash, so that you can, it's like your little bounce card that comes out of your flash, but obviously that's really small. This is a lot bigger, so you should get a lot softer light with it, and you do. I use that at weddings all the time, especially when I'm in the night do, and it's really low light. I'll set my camera up to take in some of the ambient lights around the bar and stuff like that. Obviously the subject then becomes dark. I then fill the subjects with that bounce card. But we will have a little look at it today, but it'll only be a brief look. So first things first, you need to get your camera ready, which I haven't done. We have got the flash on camera, but we're not going to do anything with it. So obviously I'm going to walk up to the camera because I'm going to shoot this from here, and I'm going to turn my camera on, which is a definite idea. Now, what I will say is, I'll just come back here again. I do know that because I'm gonna, for this shot, because I'm photographing something still, my shutter speed I've set to a 60th of a second. But what I'll do is, I'll speed it up to 1/100 at 3.5 at ISO 400. Why have I chose those settings? 1/100 of a second is good for freezing the action. If you was in a low light pub and you wanted to take some shots, but you didn't want to turn that ISO up to 3200 for the perfect exposure, I've chose ISO 400, which will help when I do eventually use my flash. It'll make it a little bit more powerful. I highly recommend that really, if it's quite low light, you should go to 800. In fact, we will go to 800. I'm going to go to 800 because what that will do is when the flash goes off and the flash starts contributing to the exposure, it'll make the flash work a lot less. The lower you keep the ISO, the cleaner the image will be, but your flash will really have to work hard, and I don't want my flash to work hard. And ISO 800 on a full frame, in fact ISO 800 on 95-100% of new cameras, even on a mobile phone, is not that much. So 800 is a good starting point. We just need to make sure that when we photograph this drone that it's not exposed properly, because if it is, when we turn the flash on, it'll obviously blow out the shot. I do recommend we use manual on the camera, and then we'll use ETTL or ITTL on the flash. So we're using manual for the ambient, and we'll let the flash dictate how bright it wants to be. And then we'll use flash exposure compensation, not exposure compensation, flash exposure compensation, to tell the flash to go a little bit darker or a little bit brighter. So let's take the first shot. Right, you'll see that shot pop up on screen. So at 1/100 of a second at ISO 100, at ISO 800 at 3.5, I'm nearly perfectly exposed. So it's very important that you take that. I mean, to be fair, at ISO 800 at 1/100 of a second and 3.5, I don't need no flash. I could just continue shooting this bride near window or whatever, or the people getting ready in the room. Let's pretend that they're not a drone and I've got a good exposure. But I don't want to do that. We want to learn how to mix this flash with the ambient. So what I'm going to do is, instead of using ISO 800, I'm going to take the ISO down to 400 and I'm going to go to an f4. What that will do now is it'll make this drone dark, but it will still be taking in some ambient light. So we'll try that again. Now, if you look at that shot, it's underexposed. I'll just tell you what it's saying on the meter. It's showing 2 full stops. See, you can use your meter on your camera to help you judge your exposure. It's showing, nearly 2 full stops underexposed. So that is at 1/100 of a second. In fact, I'll put my shutter speed up a bit more. So I'm at 1/125th, f4, ISO 400. We'll just have another look again. Bang. Right, and you'll see when that pops up on screen that it's dark. It's not pitch black. We are taking in, I could totally and utterly speed up that shutter and half that ISO, which won't take in any ambient, and we could bounce the flash, which we may do at the end of the tutorial. We may try that. So we're now locked in. We're in manual. Now this is quite important now. We're locked in with his manual settings, so his camera settings can't change. So now what we're going to do, we're going to turn the flash on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let the flash work in ETTL. So basically the flash is it's gonna do what it thinks is right. And I'll tell you now, it shouldn't be too bad. So we'll take another shot again now, and I'm going to bounce the flash. I'll just come back. I'm going to bounce the flash from this wall, which will be from camera right. So we should get some nice fill from this right hand wall, and we still get a bit of shadow on the left hand side of the drone. And there you go. You'll see that popping up on screen, but that is in manual camera settings, automatic flash, and it looks absolutely fantastic. But what we'll do is, for the price of eggs, I'll just take a look at that. Let me just have a look at the histogram. Nah, the histogram's 3/4 of the way over. Doesn't need to be any brighter. The flash is not got no exposure compensation on, and it's just bouncing over from the side. For the purpose of the video now, we're going to bounce the flash off the ceiling instead of bouncing off the wall there. So we'll just turn the flash so it's pointing up to the ceiling, and we'll get some flash from the ceiling and have a look at the 2 shots. And if you look at, it's hard to see, but if you look at the previous shot, I'll show you them on the computer, you can see that underneath the little gimbal on the drone, there's no shadow. But on the ceiling shot, because we bounced up and back down again, it created a shadow on the gimbal. And that'd be the same if you was photographing me. If you bounce the flash off the ceiling, the light will go up on a 45 and down on a 45, and it'll create a shadow underneath the chin. So that's why it's nice to bounce it off of a side wall. Or if we put this little bad boy on, it won't be as soft a light as bouncing off of my 20-foot big white wall and ceiling over there. That's really soft. But it'll go in from the front, and it'll really make a big difference. So what we'll do is, I'll just now put this on, And I'm still going to leave the flash going up to the ceiling, but we're going to use this little diffuser as well. So I'll stand back up again. You can see now that this is how we're going to take the shot. I'll point towards the drone. We're in automatic flash. We're still in manual camera settings, so they're not going to change. The light's not going to change, so we don't need to mess with the camera settings. We'll take this shot. If it's not bright enough, I'll tell the automatic to take the flash a little bit brighter. If it's too bright, I'll tell automatic flash to take it a little bit darker. Simple, really is simple, as long as you do these basic tasks. So what we'll do is, and I'm looking at that, and that is really gorgeous. I'll just take it back off again. It's really gorgeous, soft light. They sell them on Amazon for about 10 quid. They're really worth every penny. They're fantastic when you're doing, I'll give you a little tip when they're really good. If you're taking group shots inside, you usually get collared to do group shots on a night, even though the light isn't great. This is where you can do what I'm doing now. Set a good shutter speed at 1/125th, which is well quick enough. Put your ISO at 400, 800, f4, f5.6. Make sure that your ambient exposure is dark, a little bit dark. Say like the bar was behind you. You could set your exposure for the bar lights so they look lovely. And then you could turn that on there with your flash to fill in from the front and then shoot at a nice shallow depth of field. Or zoom in a lot and you'll have a nice blurred bar in background with gorgeous nice lights, and you'll have a nice bit of fill flash coming in from the front. So they are a really fantastic thing. I mean, if we look at the little diffuser that you get coming out, that little tiny card, even that works all right, but if you use that there, it's just so much better. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to bounce my flash back off this wall. So we'll just come up. We're still in automatic, and what I'm going to do for the purpose of this video, I'm going to start slowing down my shutter, which will increase the shadows, because basically when you're mixing flash with ambient, let's say it was a portrait we were doing and I was standing this way, the flash would bounce from there and hit me here, and I'd get a shadow here, which would be created by the ambient. So I could set my flash so that it was illuminating me, and then my shadow, if it was a little bit dark, I could slow my shutter down to start raising the ambient. It's a bit more advanced is that, so we won't talk about it much now. But what we're going to do now is I'm at 1/125th of a second. I'm going to start slowing my shutter down, so I'm going to leave the flash in automatic and start slowing my shutter down, and it should, you'll see a difference. It might be quite hard to see because there's not a great deal of ambient, but it should start lifting the shadows up on the drone. So we'll take the first shot. Now, there's not much shadows anyway really, but I've done the shutter speed to 50th of a second. But what's happening now, it's showing 1/3 of a stopover exposed. So we don't need flash. I'll just take a shot of that just to show you. There you go. You'll see that now. From a 50th of a second, I went to 200 of a second on the shutter, and you'll see that there's a lot more shadows in the shot at 200 of a second, because that's the big umbrella, that's the ambient. Do you remember we set the ambient at first? I'll just show you 200 of a second with no flash, just to show you what it looks like. There you go, it's really as dark as that. That's creating, you'll see it pop up, that's creating the mood of the shot. So basically, that's what adjusting the shutter speed is doing. It will not affect the flash. The flash will stay, well, it's in ETTL, not manual, but basically the flash is not being affected. So what you just saw when you seen more shadow and less shadow was the ambient light, because I was adjusting the shutter speed, it wasn't the flash. And it's a little bit more advanced, but it's quite easy to understand. Basically what you're going to do is you're going to walk into a scene, you're going to set your ambient reading first. I mean, and you heard me just say, didn't you, when I halved the shutter to a 50th, I went, oh, I'm showing perfectly exposed with no flash. But it still helped, even though it was perfectly exposed. You're seeing the shot after with a bit of flash as well, it just helped lift the shadows a little bit. And ETTL would basically know that, and that's why it only probably fired off a bit. So my settings now are 200 of a second at f4. ISO 400. So we'll just take it again. And what we'll do is, I'm going to turn the flash back on, 200 of a second. In fact, I'm going to go to a 5.6 at ISO 400, and I'm going to take a shot. Let's take a shot with no flash first. Take a shot. That's showing really dark. Turn the flash on. ETTL showing absolutely spot on. And the only difference that I'm going to do now is I'm going to knock the shutter speed to a 50th of a second, and you'll see all that will be affected will be the ambient light on the drone, not the flash. And basically, it might be hard to see on the PC, but when I'm going to the 50th of a second shot and the 200 of a second shot, the shadows are just better on the 50th of a second, because obviously I'm bouncing the light from that side. It will be hitting the other wall and filling a bit, and I'm creating those shadows. So when I speed the shutter up, the shadows will get more intense, and when I slow the shutter speed down, the shadows will get less, because obviously you're taking in more ambient, and the shadows are the ambient in this case. So I might just end this video for now. Just have a little talk. I'll turn that off. Hopefully this will help you understand flash, mixing ambient with flash. I know it's only been a drone, but and you've got to remember to try staying your sync speed, although high speed sync would work now. So I could go to 400 of a second if I want. What I will say is, if you're in a scene where your shutter speed's got to be absolute, in fact, we'll take one more shot. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to go to 200 of a second, f8, ISO 400. And the reason why I'm going to do that is, with no flash, I'm going to show you that, just checking my mic, sorry. I'm going to show you that I might as well use all flash. That, you know, if the settings that we need on the camera aren't taking in any ambient at all, so let's say we need 200 of a second, we want f8 because it's a load of big group shots we're doing, then if you're not taking in any ambient, then don't worry about it. Just set your flash off camera or bounce it and let your flash do the work. So for this shot, we're going to have a look at 200 of a second, f8, ISO 400. It should near enough be pitch black in here at that. And there is a little bit of ambient, but it's near as goddamn it pitch black. And all we've got to do is turn the flash on in ETTL, bounce it from the right hand side. Let's focus on the DJI logo. In fact, we'll focus at the front. Bang. And you'll see from dark to nothing, we still got some nice shadows on the front of the drone. And I'll just show you, I'll just do one more now and really slow that. I'll leave it at f8 and really slow my shutter down to a 30th of a second. Wow. And if you see the difference there, you'll see the shadows a lot less. And you're probably thinking, hang on, John, did you just say 30th of a second? Yes, because I'm still showing a couple of stops darker than the ambient. My meter's showing 2 stops under. So my flash is working quite hard to give me the exposure, so it'll mean that I can use a slower shutter speed and freeze the action. That's why it's important to take the ambient. If you take the ambient first, you know what's happening. If you just walk in, and let's just do one more little scenario. Oh no, I won't bother. Not for this video, it's gone on too long. But if you walk in aperture priority and walk into pub or wherever you are, put it into AV at f4, 200, well, it'll choose your shutter speed, won't it? So, because it's AV. So if you choose f4, ISO 400, and you walk into pub, and you turn your flash on, you start taking pictures, you ain't got a clue what your flash is doing, or what, it might look okay, but you don't know what's happening. That's why it's important to take, at your settings that you choose to use, take a shot with no flash, and you can see what's happening with that ambient. And bearing in mind, if it's a couple of stops, if I'm dark, a couple of stops, 2, 3 stops, you know that you can drag your shutter because the flash will freeze the action for you. If you're using flash to just ever so slightly lift the face, then dragging the shutter could become an issue because you're near enough perfectly exposed anyway. So if you're using 60th of a second and I move a bit, I'll blur. So it's very important that you take that ambient reading. So let's say, for instance, you was using it to just lift the face ever so slightly. You might still want your 1/160th of a second so that it frees the action, and then you turn your flash on ETTL or manual. Now, I know in the first video I said that you should use manual flash, and you should, to understand how it works. It's the same as using manual on your camera. You should learn how manual works. Then you can start to use the automatic modes, but just using the automatic modes will not help you in the long run because you don't really know what's going on. All you do is you know that you're getting a shot, and when it goes wrong, you're screwed. It's as simple as that. Now, on all these shots that you've seen me take today, I never messed with the flash exposure compensation once. The camera did a fantastic job. It's probably just the scene. In different scenes, like if it was a backlit situation with a big bright window, the flash might not get it right. So you might need flash compensation. I was going to show you it, but I didn't need any because it seemed to get it perfect every time. But if it had got it wrong and it wasn't, if it was a little bit dark, I would have just said, flash, can you turn it up a little bit, please? Or flash, can you go a little bit darker? Anyway, thanks for watching. Please comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in part 3.